Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalam. And reset your counter and we'll begin shortly. Uh, the PDF of the book that we'll be going through and studying, definitely diving into the Alchemy of Happiness by Fitness, which is an illustrious author. If you find any books translated into English by Imam Al-Ghazali, definitely get it. Definitely get it. He's able to take very deep esoteric subject matter and write it in such a way that it almost comes off exoteric, but for us, we definitely know it's a lot deeper than what appears on the surface. So he's able to take something real deep and transpose it in an eight-chapter book. An eight-chapter book. By the end of this, the whole entirety of the Alchemy of Happiness will be understood, and we'll have these videos for reference and the PDF for reference also. Uh, we'll start off with the introduction in the book, only because the preface is a bit lengthy, and it kind of goes into some of the things in the eight chapters that we'll wind up going through. Also, secondly, not too sure we should do this before or after, but we'll set the vibe first to figure it out. We should have Brother Asar L in the building to take the Bayat, renew the Shahada and take Bayat today. Very deep mystic brother from ancient Egypt, manifest again in the flesh. So I think we'll do that towards the end so we can get some zikr going, dive into the text, get on the same vibe with this alchemy of happiness. And once we vibe up a bit, can bring the brother right on in, then keep on moving with the next seven courses and onward from here to Allah, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله وهو العلي العظيم الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We know what the Arabic on yellow paper means. Salatul Nabi from Sheikh Afanu Bamba. Salatul Nabi or prayer on the Prophet. This one is beloved. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وقال في الدلائل خيرات مستشفع به إلى خيرات قول مع في الصلاة على النبي صاحب الآيات مصليا على النبي محمد أداد الجمع ثم أداد المفرد مسلما على رسول مصطفى وآله وصحبه وخلفاء وسل ربي عداد القراق على النبي صاحب البراق وسل ربي عدد الرواعد على النبي هبوت بالخوارق وسل ربي عدد التراب على النبي صاحب المحراب وصل ربي عدد الأصناع على النبي صاحب اللقاء وسل ربي عدد النجوم على النبي صاحب المحروم وسل ربي عدد الحشيش على النبي صاحب العريش وسل ربي عدد الأمواج على النبي صاحب المخراج وسل ربي عدد الأمتار على النبي صيد الأسار وسل ربي عدد السجود على النبي صيد الوجود وسل ربي عدد ركوع على النبي صيد الجموع وسل ربي عدد الأحزان على النبي صاحب القرآن وسل ربي عدد الحصداع على النبي صاحب النبار، وسل ربي عدد الأشجار، على النبي مصطفى مختار، وسل ربي عدد الأزمان، على النبي صاحب البرهان، وسل ربي عدد الرياح، على النبي صاحب المصباح، وسل ربي عدد الوحوش، على النبي صاحب الجيوش، وسل ربي عدد الأيادي، على النبي سيد السيد، وسل ربي عدد الرجال، على النبي صاحب الخصال، وسل ربي عدد الشهادة، على النبي صاحب الريادة، وسل ربي عدد الأكوان، على النبي صاحب الإخوان، وسل ربي عدد الملائكة، على النبي صاحب الآراء، وسل ربي عدد الحروف، على النبي صاحب المعروف، وصل ربي عدد الكلام، على النبي صاحب المقام، مصليا على النبي الأمتي، مصليا عليه ثمرائي، وسل ربي عدد الحياة، على النبي أفصل الصلاة، وسل ربي عدد الأسواء، على النبي صاحب الأسراء، وسل ربي عدد الأسلام، على الذي حبوت بالكلام، وسل ربي عدد الكفار، على الذي حبوت بالمنار، وسل ربي عدد الأجاعد، على الذي حبوت بالغرائب، وسل ربي عدد الأفراء، على الذي هبوت بالمراد، وسل ربي عدد الجميع، على الذي هبوت بالتشريع، وسل ربي عدد السنبيل، على الذي هبوت بالنوفيل، وسل ربي عدد الأوقات، على الذي هبوت بالغايات، وسل ربي عدد الصيام، على الذي هبوت بالكتاب، وسل ربي عددا جائد، على الذي هبوت بالكتائب، وسل ربي عدد الأيام، على الذي هبوت بالأحمام، وسل ربي عدد الليل، على الذي هبوت بالهلال، وسل ربي عدد تخميني، على الذي هبوت بالتحميد، يا ربنا بهذه الصلاة أسلك بنا مسلك بنا جنات، وارزق لنا بحرمة الرعوف رضاك في الممات والغفوف، يا ربنا بحرمة الشهادة ارزق لنا من خالق الصحادة، سميتها صلاة العلياء على النبي صاحب الأنبياء. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. قل لا إله إلا الله وتفلحون. Say La ilaha illallah and be successful 100 times. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. Ya ain so kufitu kula darani Allah bi siri la ilaha illallah. Abli marada ya kama afahu bi siri la ilaha illallah. Yashil Usra kama afahu bisiri la ilaha illallah ala nabiyya Mustafa yallahu salli bi la ilaha illallah salatan mu'min bi salam ilahi bisiri la ilaha illallah la ilaha illallah. There is no existence but this divine reality, and the source of that divine reality is also the source of the happiness that from the Shakespeare quote from earlier that we don't have to go out into the world to seek and lift up rocks to go look for, climb up on trees and search across the horizon to go look for some happiness. We take the eyes and the sensory perception and we turn it inward, where the happiness always was. Alhamdulillah. Looks like we're feeling on in. Let's pull up beloved Imam Ghazali's text here, right at the introduction. Somebody bust off in the introduction like this. No, oh beloved. Come on, he starts off calling the reader or the reciter of the book the beloved. Message. No, oh beloved, that man was not created at jest or at random, but marvelously made and for some great end, not mediocre, but a great, great end. Although he is not everlasting, that's where the end comes from, yet he lives forever. And through his body is mean and earthly, yet his spirit is lofty and divine. when in the crucible of abstinence, abstaining from things that we ain't got no business doing, put that 40 ounce down. Stop for a lot. He is purged from carnal passions. He attains to the highest, and in the place of being a slave to lust and anger, becomes angelic qualities, godlike qualities. Mm-hmm. Attaining that state, he or she finds his or her heaven in the contemplation of the eternal beauty, and no longer in any fleshly delights at all. No nafs, no hawa, no dunya, and of course no shaitan, oh billah. The spiritual alchemy which operates this change in him, like that which transmutes base metals into gold, right? Is not easily discovered. Like Jesus, peace be upon him, said, like the way is straight and narrow. Like y'all can go through the broad and wide gate, but ain't nothing over there but destruction. But this way, this is the way that is going to lead to something, right? It's hinted at. Is to explain that alchemy and its methods of operation, just like this text here, that the author has undertaken this work, which he calls the alchemy of happiness. Now, the treasuries of God in which this alchemy is to be sought, meaning we got to do it, and nobody else is going to do it for us. The way and the path that this alchemy is sought are the hearts of the prophets, and he who seeks it elsewhere will be disappointed and bankrupt on the day of judgment when he hears the words, "We have lifted the veil off thee, and thy sight today is keen." Don't look back and realize I squandered my whole life on Ubu Billahi Minashaitanir Rajim. Astaghfirullah. Imam Ghazali goes to the great message that God, Allah, has sent to earth 124,000 message prophets to teach men the prescription of this alchemy, how to go about this process, and how to purify their hearts from baser qualities, purifying the heart, taskiya till nas, purification of the self, away from baser qualities in the crucible of abstinence or abstaining from these things. This alchemy can be briefly described as kind of a turning away from the world, but to God. And it's a fourfold path, the way that is broken down, split into two sections. So it's how we get the 8 chapters here from Imam Al-Ghazali. The first 4 ways that this alchemy can be briefly described, this alchemy of happiness. Like, brother, what do you mean? Like, how can I just wake up tomorrow and all this stuff's going on in the hood and like just wake up and be happy? You woke up. That's the first thing. But you came back into the body and then the body woke up. So the first point Imam Al Ghazali says is knowledge of self. Like it said on the outside of the Kemetic temples, if nafsak, or know thyself. Right? And if you know thyself, you'll already be at the second point, which is the knowledge of God, because he who knows himself also knows his Lord. Third point of this alchemy, to break it down, is also knowledge of this world and what it really is. It's like it's mentioned in the Quran a few times, like this life in this world is nothing but play. It's a game. It's a that. But if you spend that well enough and you purify yourself, raise vibration, however anyone wants to describe this process of becoming better and becoming godlike, and as best we can in this particular manifestation, we'll be more apt to be able to reach that higher vibration that the soul and spirit goes to after we leave this world. Of course, not since we know what this world really is. At the third point, what could be the fourth point? The knowledge of the next world as it really is. So for now, we'll go ahead and proceed to expound on those four in order in the book: knowledge of self, knowledge of God, knowledge of this world and what it really is, some bull stock, and the knowledge of the next world and what it really is. Now, quick little heads up into chapter one. There'll be a couple of points that'll be looked at. The main is to try to look at the text two different ways. That'll be the key when when reading and studying brothers like Imam Al-Ghazali. And we can get a hint at that from line 80 and 81 from Masalik al-Jinnan from Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, where he says that according to the masters, religious knowledge is divided into two sorts: exoteric knowledge, or ilm zahir, or esoteric knowledge. Next, ilm batin. And what Sheikh Ahmed Bamba says about those two is that the exoteric is in charge of improving man's action, physical action, while the esoteric deals with his spiritual moods, the vibration of those through the seven stations of the soul up to perfection. Alhamdulillah for the path and a teacher such as Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, also to come with a path and a way to attain this exact same level of happiness. He who knows his own soul doesn't know his Lord. So Imam Al-Ghazali busts off and says that knowledge of the self is the key to knowledge of God. Close the book. That's it. Class over. Knowledge of self is the key to knowledge of God, according to the Sufi saying that he who knows himself knows God. He who knows himself knows Allah, knows his Lord. And the same thing is written in the Quran when it says, we will show them our signs in the world, third point, and in themselves, the first point: knowledge of self and knowledge of this world and what it really is, so that the truth may be manifest to them. Now, nothing is nearer or nothing is closer to you than yourself. So if you don't know yourself, how can you know anything else? Ouch. Now, that's a pinch that might cause an abrasion. It'll be in the Wigway quote. If thou sayest, I know myself, or if you say, I know myself, meaning my outward shape, my body, my face, my limbs, and so forth, such knowledge can never be a key to the knowledge of God. Because then I will think that God is sitting in a chair somewhere up in the clouds, just pointing down at things, making blessings happen. You get a blessing. You get a blessing. You know what? All of y'all get a blessing. No, unless that guy sitting in a chair is sitting in a chair looking at this class right now, or sitting in the chair teaching the class right now, or in the future sitting in a chair looking at the class at the moment. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Allah is always on time, brother. Glad to have you. So such knowledge of the body can't really be equated as a key to the knowledge of God, because knowledge of self is the key to the knowledge of God, as he said at the beginning. Nor if this knowledge as to which it is extends only so far that when you're hungry you eat, or when you're angry you attack someone. That's ego. That's the enemy that gets cut off. So we know that that's not us. Check that off of the list, right? So will one progress any further on this path, or the beasts that are within it, they're identifying it, which are also their partners in that particular case? Imam Al-Ghazali says, no, they can't progress any further. They're still attached to, or even worse, in some cases, identifying with their animal nature. Like, that's just how I am. When XYZ happens, I just get mad and don't know why. But now with that statement, there's a choice now. Alhamdulillah. of a choice now to either identify with how you acted past, getting riled up by whatever, or acting completely different or woo way, action and inaction. Not just physically not moving the body though, but stilling all of the senses until we get centered in that balance and equilibrium so much to the point that where we have the I'm the one up here watching all of this stuff happen. It's just happening. Existence is existing. And I'm blessed enough to be able to see existence exist. And now you see as a smile on the face because once you change what you look at and how you look at it, those things that you just changed how you look at will also change just like that. Just like that. Imam Ghazali goes on to say that this real self knowledge it consists in knowing the following things, and these are some tough questions that they can be because they're, they're not really meant to be answered. They're kind of meant to dissolve that which is going to try to answer it, if you get that. But real self knowledge consists in the four following things: what are you in yourself, and from whence hast thou come? Whither art thou going? Where art thou going? And for what purpose have you came to tarry here or stay here for a while? And what does your real happiness and misery consist of? If we're able to answer all those questions, like what am I? If I'm the body, body ain't isn't technically going anywhere. A body is sitting in a chair right now because the thing that makes the body move, sitting in a chair. So that's me. So like, if that's me, and that exists everywhere, then truly, where am I going? I'm everywhere. If I came here to do for a while, if I still identify with the body, I'm trying to figure out what I got to do with the last few years of physical existence. But if I know that I'm the being on the inside, that even when this thing stops working, it continues. There's not even anything to be afraid of about this thing just continuing to work one day. Because real Muslims know as soon as, let's just say, I'm delivering the teaching, and then in the middle of getting ready to say a sentence, you feel this, but you don't want to say anything about it. So you continue to teach, but you know on the inside that, hey, something's wrong. Wait, I feel different. As soon as you get that feeling, you know it's about to be the last breath. All right. The last breath is for a Muslim should never be anything that's attached to the material world or some of those like carnal passions that he was speaking of. I'm the body. The body's hungry. I got to go feed the body. I got mad the other day at XYZ. All that's it's done. That doesn't exist at all. But the entity that felt it does exist. And now that it's about to get ready to leave this physical existence, if it still has that on its heart, mind, and tongue at that exact same time when it's getting ready to go, it proclaims there is no existence but this divine reality. I'm just gonna get ready to go experience another level to it. And if I was blessed enough to see some of the things that human beings have been able to do here during their short time on this rock, I can only imagine what a collective self is going to do in the next vibration, inshallah. Some of the attributes of this split, exoteric and esoteric, outward body, inward self, he says, are those of animals, of devils, and some of angels. But we have to find out which of these attributes are accidental and which ones are essential. And until we know these things, he says that we can't figure out where true happiness lies. Because the occupation of animals is eating, sleeping, and fighting. They depend on instinct and carnal nature. Therefore, if so and so is an animal, then let so and so busy themselves in those things, he says. It was always busy stirring up mischief and guile and deceit and turning this person against that person. So if so and so is doing something like that, then apparently so and so is a devil. Looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. I think there just might be a duck, folks. However, angels contemplate the beauty of God and are completely free from those animal qualities. So if you are of angelic nature, essence on the inside, right, that is of an angelic nature, then strive towards that origin, that we may know and contemplate the Most High, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be delivered from nafs, power, dunya, shaitan, worldly matters, materialism, ooh, a shiny thing, astaghfirullah. We should also discover why we were created with these two instincts. Like, because they're there. Sometimes people wake up and they own it. They own their deen. They own it. They own it. But then you wake up tomorrow and just won't be going right, and your vibe might be off. But as long as we get back on it, that's okay. Don't identify with that which tries to get you attached to something to get us angry. Always identify with that source of peace that emanates from within that overpowers any negative vibration. So we get back to that center, the balance and equilibrium where that happiness exists at. First step to self knowledge is to know that we are composed of an outward shape called the body and an inward entity called the heart or the soul. It puts a little jokey joke. By heart, I do not mean the piece of flesh situated in the left of our bodies, but that which uses all of the other faculties as its instruments and its servants. And in truth, it doesn't even belong to the visible world, but it belongs to the invisible world. And it is came into this world as a traveler visits a foreign country for the sake of merchandise and will presently return to its native land when it is done with that journey. This knowledge of this entity and its attributes, which is the key to God, which is why Quran hints at things like, oh, you who believe, take care of yourselves. He who errs or he who does wrong, he who does bad things cannot hurt you when you're on the right path. That's chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita, right there. Like, you are that which cannot be cut by a sword. You are that which cannot be wet by water. You are that which cannot be blown by the wind. You are that which that cannot be burnt by the fire. And as long as we know that, then there is nothing in this physical existence that can truly harm us. Alhamdulillah. Is there a question? Alhamdulillah. Some of the idea of the reality of the heart or the spirit, he says, can be attained by a man closing his eyes and forgetting everything around him except his or her individuality. He'll thus also obtain a glimpse of the unending nature of that individuality. Too close of an inquiry, he says, into the essence of the spirit, they say is forbidden by the law. Like in the Quran, it's written, they will question thee concerning the spirit. Like, man, what truly is the spirit thing? You keep talking about the spirit and this soul thing, but like, what is the spirit? Quran tells us, say, the spirit comes by demand of my Lord. Thus much is known of it that it is an indivisible essence belonging to the world of decrees, the world of the decree of Allah, and that it is not from anything that ceases to exist like this body. So I can't, there's certain levels of these teachings that we just won't be able to dive into in the material. But the fact that we get the ability to try to get as high as possible in this existence is such a beautiful blessing that I think if it manifested, I'd probably be smiling just hard as I am right now. Right? An exact philosophical essence of the spirit is not necessary. It's not necessarily a preliminary or a prerequisite. What he was saying, it's not necessarily a prerequisite to walk on the path of religion, but it comes rather as a result of self-discipline and perseverance in that path, like it says in the Quran. Those who strive in our way, verily we will guide them to right paths. Oh, it's right there. That reminds me of the third step of the way of the seeker, is taught by Shakespeare, the Tajalli, or it's a manifestation. It's a visual manifestation of spiritual etheric experience, something otherworldly that you can't describe in human words happen to you. And since something like that happens to you and you can't describe it in human words, you know it couldn't have been done by a human at all. So it couldn't have been anybody but Allah. They call those things tajalli, and those pops, or those divine openings in the flood plains just pour out on you. Only happen by contemplation of Allah, Allah's signs and manifestations throughout the entirety of creation as a very special epiphany to the person that is in that deep contemplation, that they get through a contemplative vision. So all of the deep things that people may be putting on the TikTok videos or YouTube and whatnot about what this system or that system describes the spirit, just yeah, it is. It just is. Like it just is. There's an exact working knowledge of every single kink and cog on the inside of the spirit isn't a prerequisite to walking on the path, because what he's saying is that it comes with walking on the path. It's like some things can't necessarily be taught, but they have to be experienced. Right? Baba Everlasting Omnipresent Peace mentions that sometimes if our roundtable discussions kind of get a little too scholarly, quote this author, quote that author, quote this author, quote that author, this author's better than that author, this book's better than that book. But we've all just repeated the exact same parable and principle around the table. Brother Peace will butt in and be like, hey, reading all the books is good. It's good to have all of that knowledge and to be able to quote the scholars. But what have you experienced? Right? Ask that at the table, and all of the scholars will shut up. You've read a bunch of the stuff in the book, though, but have you closed up the book and opened up this one and read what was in there, and then close that book and come back out and let's build on that experience? Point people towards the inside, because that's where the happiness is. You're not gonna find the happiness on paper. It's only gonna be found on the inside. And golly, it feels even better when you find it on the inside. You polish up that spot where it lives at, and you allow it to radiate outward, and you get to see other people's reaction, and you get to see happiness manifest on that face. I don't know about y'all, but that's magic. That's magic right there. That's magic. You can see somebody walking up to you having the crappiest day ever. But there's one thing that y'all may know, or an inside joke or something that y'all might have, and all of a sudden you just kind of pop out and say it in a funny manner. And then the person looks up and they see it's coming from you, and they can't help but smile right then and there. They let go of whatever that was in that moment that they were sad about, because they looked at someone that saw them here. This is where they're at, and they know this is where they have their connection, and they put something across that line to the other side to make an even stronger connection, and then remind that person that happiness comes from within. Right? Person didn't make the other person smile. The other person looked up and heard, and he himself smiled. The source of happiness is always from within. It's always from within because when someone makes you laugh, you're the one that smiles. You're the one that smiles, and that smile comes from this thing on the inside of his body that makes all these things work that we don't even have to command. Heart, please beat the average amount of beats per minute, and don't skip one. Like, don't really lie. You don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. But traversing on the path, those things are taught best by experience, and a lot of times they're taught very well by scholars like Imam Ghazali that are able to break it down to where it's able to be expounded upon, carrying on that spiritual warfare by which the knowledge of yourself and the knowledge of God is to be obtained. The body can be figured or be viewed as a kingdom, and the soul as the king, and the different senses, your hearing, sight, smell, touch, taste, they can be considered as the army for the visual picture. Reason might be called the vizier or the prime minister. He said passion might be called the revenue collector, and anger, the police officer in this body that's a figured as a kingdom. Now, under the disguise of collecting revenue, getting things I need look, shiny things. I gotta have that new pair of zippies. I gotta have that new robe. I gotta have that new. But how many do I have in the closet already that I haven't worn? Stop for a lot. Passion, he says, passions are always continually prone to plunder or to rob their own account. They rob their own account, while resentment is always inclined to harshness and severity. Both of those, the revenue collector and the police officer, they have to be kept in check by the king, right? But not killed or expelled because they have their own proper functions to fulfill. But if the revenue collector, tax collector, and the police officer are working from anger and passions, those two things that are supposed to be cut off, then they're not fit for use. So they got to get out. They got to go. But if they're walking on that and they're balancing themselves on that path, really being a sharif, not a sheriff, but really being a sharif, because a sharif is a doggone verified descendant of the Prophet Muhammad's family, peace be upon him. So these people over here with these big old hats on, with brims and fake fez and all of that nice little police officer stuff on it. If you're not upholding the proper principles of the prophet, you're not a sheriff. In rant. Let's talk for a lot. But passion and resentment master reason. If they do so, the ruin of the soul is going to eventually ensue and then continue. And the soul, he says, that allows its lower faculties to dominate the higher one. Who should hand over an angel the power of a dog, or hand over to a Muslim of the power of tyranny or the power of unbelief, because you're not going to do anything with it. The cultivation of demonic or animal or angelic qualities, he says, results in the production of the corresponding characters, right? The tax collector, the prime minister, the king, the police officer, which in the day of judgment will be manifest in visible shapes. The sensual appearing as swine, meaning that which looks good is going to look bad on the day of judgment. That which looked good to us while we were in the material realm, we didn't really see what it was in the after or in the afterlife. And those ferocious things as dogs and wolves, as pure angels, certain things that we might have been scared of while we were in this particular manifestation, we was never anything to be afraid of at all. So the aim of the moral discipline on the path by experiencing certain things like Cheikh Sufi will drop a doggone teaching so deep it makes a couple brain cells, or might read something in the book that's like We'll start from research into that and then dive into the wisdom. The moral discipline that we receive on the path is to purify the heart where Allah resides, right? Not in the heavens or in the earth, but in the heart of the true believer. That's also where the source of happiness exists, right? We have to purify the heart from the rust of passion and resentment. Can't be lusting toward things that's attached to one of the four enemies, and no resentment. Can't be angry at my brother because Muslim akhul Muslim. A Muslim is the brother of another Muslim. I can't be mad at my brother. It's my Muslim brother. We just gonna get back to balance and equilibrium and peace, and then probably gonna zip it together when we get done. We have to polish the heart up until it's clear like a mirror, because that's how it reflects the light of God. Or as Cheikh Bamba mentions in the teachings, that the whole essence of the Sufi path is tasfiyah to nafs. It's purification of the self. So if we are to overcome the four enemies, that means that we are not them. Right? We're not that enemy that's attached to egoic gain. We're not that enemy that's attached to carnal passions and desires. And I just want this thing and I don't know why. We're not this enemy that's attached to materialism. I gotta have them new foes on the whip, dog. And we're definitely not that enemy that's attached to just pure evil and devilishment, shaitan, so if we're not any of those four entities, then who are we? We're that indwelling spirit message, the consciousness that makes that decision to or to not. Hmm. Al-Ghazali, man, do you do it? Someone may hear object, he says. So he's like, somebody's reading this and is going to be like, no, no, bro, what? Someone here may object. But if man was created with these animal and demonic qualities, as well as the angelic ones, right? How are we to know that the latter is who he really is? Like the angelic state, the angelic essence is who he really is, while the others are merely accidental and transitory. So, like, how do you know you're not the nafs Howard in the shaitan? And Imam Ghazali says to that he answers that the essence of each of the creatures is to be sought by that which is the highest in it and peculiar to it. So the horse and the donkey are burden bearing animals, but the superiority of the horse to the donkey consists in it being adapted for use in battle. And you imagine someone riding a donkey in the battle amongst everybody riding horses? Oh, if it fails in this, then it becomes degraded to the rank of a burden-bearing animal. So if that horse don't do great in battle, yeah, it might go back to the farm and it might just be a burden-bearing animal. Similarly, with man, he says, the highest faculty within us is reason, within that consciousness, that indwelling spirit that exists within us, which fits him for the contemplation of God. Since what's most high within us is divine knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and reason, neither of those things vibrate in such a low rate to where they're even able to be grabbed onto by the four enemies way down there. Oh, so if that's what predominates us, if that's what's at our most high, if that's what's at our innermost being, then when we die, we leave behind him, we leave behind us all of those tendencies of passion and resentment, and we become capable of association with the angels, because that which was capable of attachment to those things, it can't go up there. It can't go up there. And human beings are intelligent. Human beings are curious. Human beings harbor ambiguous potential for both good and evil, and therefore are held accountable for their choices. That's that reason. All right. Sheikh Bamba sums that up. Let your knowledge be the leader of your action. Right. I know somebody in the house and had their grandma or their granddad tell them, if you know better, do better. Right? If you know better, do better. Like, let your knowledge be the leader of your action. If I know that I should be trying a little bit harder at certain things that I might not be that great at right now, then eventually, if I keep trying and trying and trying, I'm not actually trying. That's practice. And with practice makes perfect. Continue the daily practices, right? Alhamdulillah, because practice makes perfect. As in regards to these mere animal qualities that that person was just questioning about, right? Man is inferior to many animals, but his reason makes them superior to them, as it's also said in the Quran. Allah says, to man, we have subjected all things in the earth. All things in the earth have been subjected to man. Allah made Adam Khalifa to the earth, vice steering of the earth. But if his lower tendencies have triumphed, if his nafs, how we're doing his shaitan, were allowed to rise up the Kundalini circuit after death, he will be looking towards the earth and longing for earthly delights. So that same example earlier about someone in mid sentence and they realized, instant ticket to Jannah, paradise, heaven. But when the person opposite that is that, but no, man, I just bought the new rails for my car, man. I just got where you focusing on something that rolls on the ground, brother. You can't get no lower than that. That's dunya. That's dunya. It's materialism. And Hawa, because now it's a carnal passion and a desire. Like, oh, don't be attached to that. Be thankful for the fact that I got a chance to drive that car. And then let me see what kind of astral body Allah is going to give me in the next life, in the afterlife, and see how much faster it can go than your Corvette. Which one is going to win that race? I'll be happy with the astral body that can go a little faster than the Corvette. Imam Ghazali mentions that the rational soul in man abounds in marvels, both by knowledge and power. By means of that, he masters arts and sciences. And by doing so, he can pass in a flash from earth to heaven and back again. He can map out the skies and he can measure the distances between the stars. Because just like it says in the Quran, O ye assembly of mankind and jinn, pass ye beyond the highest heights of heaven if you have the ability to do so. And continues, doesn't even let mankind and jinn answer and say, I think I can. Allah continues to say, but you cannot without the permission of your Rabb, your higher self, your most highest vibrating indwelling spirit that comes from Allah as the highest. That's the connection. That can make it, right? But the body can't. It can't. I don't know how many have gotten into science, but keep those. There are two radiation belts surrounding the Earth. One's a little bit smaller and less dense than the other, but the one on the outside, the furthest away from the Earth, that radiation belt is so dense that even if we were to make it through the first radiation belt, we would be burnt to a crisp before we even got to the to the second radiation belt. How was that known way back then? It's put in the Quran 1400 years ago that, oh, mankind and jinn, you think you can pass the highest heights of heaven? You can't, not in your body. You can only do so with the indwelling spirit. That can make it, but the body cannot. Oh, not knowing that, I don't know why someone wouldn't be on such a path as just to help raise the vibration of that indwelling spirit so we can go to the highest, inshallah. This particular man, his heart is like a mirror, which reflects what is pictured in the tablet of fate for this person. But even in his sleep, thoughts of worldly things would still dull that mirror so that the impressions that it receives in the astral plane aren't clear. So usually is what is best to do before we wind up going to sleep is to make sure that we carry a little bit of that with us. We did 12,000 zikr throughout the course of the day, but from my living room to my bedroom, it's a couple of feet. As soon as I get into the bedroom, there needs to be another quick zikr. Never go to sleep without them 21 Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, all right, before going to sleep. So the last thing on my mind and the last thing I'm going to say before going to sleep is a zikr that reminds me, boom, right back to that center. So that when this indwelling spirit does drift off and go through those radiation belts, because the body can't do it, the last vibratory rate that it had was something from Quran, something from Sunnah, line from Sheikh Imam side that is a compounding of the Quran and the Sunnah, so that that journey is quick and easy. The opening of a window in the heart to the unseen also takes place in conditions approaching those of prophetic inspiration, meaning getting closer to Sheikh Nubama, because Sheikh Nubama will get us closer to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, will get us closer to Allah. And when these divine intuitions spring up in the mind, conveyed through these sense channels that we have here, the more that a man or a woman or a murid on this path is purified him or herself from the nafs hawa dunya, shaitan, those fleshly lusts, and concentrates his or her mind on God, the more conscious this person will be of such intuition. So when they come, it won't just be a bright flash of the beloved, like Rumi says, like Shams Tabrizi, and Shams Tabrizi is gone, and then Rumi just starts lamenting and poetry about how he just saw a glimpse of the beloved and he wished that the beloved would have stayed just a little bit longer. But even though he only got to see him for just a glimpse, that was more than enough to bring him to a whole other level of happiness, to where he winds up writing the whole praise poem of a manifestation of Allah that lasted just that long. Because the more a man purifies his heart from those nafs, how we're doing the shaitan, it said that the more conscious he will be of those intuitions, and those who are not conscious of them don't have any right to deny their reality. The more a man purifies himself from fleshly lust and concentrates his mind on God, the more he will be conscious of those intuitions. But those who are not conscious of them have no right to deny that reality. Like this old hymn I used to love hearing my granddad raise. So you don't know what the Lord told me. You don't know when, and you don't know where. You don't know what the Lord told me. Those who are not conscious of them don't have any right to deny their reality, because they could not have known when and could not have known where. Because that particular manifestation of Shams Tabrizi, that particular manifestation of the beloved, that particular manifestation of Allah or the Prophet Muhammad to you is such a divine manifestation that there's no there's not the slightest iota of anything dark within it, no imperfections, pure light to the point of where you can't do anything but smile. And then when it goes away, write a poem like Rumi does about what you just saw. Al-Ghazali also mentions in another writing that I forget which book this quote was from. Dear friend, your heart is a polished mirror. You must wipe it clean of the dust that is gathered on it, because it is destined to reflect the light of divine secrets. Now, these intuitions, the tajali, this divine manifestation, seeing a pure light being walk up to you, is not just confined to people of prophetic rank. Don't think you ain't gonna go out there and do 12,000 zikr and then go right to sleep when you get done, and you might not drift out somewhere and see something that somebody else saw already. But neither one of us here has reached the rank of a prophet. That doesn't mean that it's not able to be done by us. Like Isa ibn Maryam said in the Bible, like, is it not written in your law that I've said that ye are all God's message? Ye are all children of the Most High message. All these things that you say that I have done, ye can do, and greater than, right? just like the process of alchemy, just as iron by sufficient polishing can be made into a mirror, so any mind, any mind by due discipline can be rendered perceptive to those same imperfections of impressions. It was this same truth that the Prophet Muhammad threw a hint at when he said, every child is born with a predisposition to Islam, not just necessarily surface level religion understanding about what people think Islam is on TV. Every child is born with a predisposition to a perfect inner balance to where they are already in the kingdom of heaven. None are in there unless they become like children. They're able to tap into, not even tap into, they're still tapped in. They're still tapped in. We're already predisposed to be in contact with Allah. Every child is born with a predisposition towards Islam or a way to get closer to Allah or remain attached. Then his parents make him a Jew or a Christian or a star worshiper, a star for Allah. But the essence is every single human being, every single human being has within the depths of his consciousness heard that same question. Am I not your Lord? And answered yes to it. Have they not heard this still small voice say something and you respond to it, and then your action is in accordance to that which you just said? And that's happened. But some hearts that don't get polished, no matter how much they say that they're happy, if there's no light reflecting from that, that person just putting on a front about being happy. Some are so defiled with rust that they don't give any reflections, while those of the prophets and the saints and the people who follow those prophets and those saints, because like he said, every mind has the capacity to reach that state. They are men and women of passions just like us. We're extremely sensitive to all divine impressions. That's why we would going through and teaching and expounding on a Sufi book by someone who went through Islam, Imam, and Ihsan all into Sufism while wearing a Buddhist and a Hindu necklace, because that's just Allah over there also. And reading some of those books bring that same light from the heart, because you have to you have to traverse the path. You have to do the practices. You have to recite those mantras. You have to hold them in the heart and keep them there, so that they put it in the blood and it goes throughout the whole entire body until you reflect that happiness to your entire being. Alhamdulillah. Rumi says that everyone sees the unseen in the proportion to the clarity of his heart. And that depends on how much he has polished it. Whoever has polished it more, he sees more, and more unseen forms become manifest to him. Now, it's not just by reason, it's not just by knowledge or intuition that the soul of a man can hold this particular rank at all. It's also by a certain type of power. Just like angels preside over the elements, so does the soul preside or rule over the members of the body. Those souls who attain a special degree of power don't only rule their body, but also the body of others also. Don't take that the wrong way. If if they wish a sick man to recover, he recovers. Or if a person in health falls ill, he becomes ill. Or if they will the presence of a person, then this person comes to him. So to bring that to a more understanding, Serene Salihu, no, sorry, Serene Falu, Borum Kun Faya Kun. Boredom means the owner of or the possessor of, and then kun faya kun is be and it is. So sometimes if you're friends with some of the Senegalese brothers, and you might catch a phrase here and there or see a sheikh's name and there'll be a few words after it, Sering Falu Borum Kung Fa Kun means Sering Falu is the owner of Kung Fa Kun, possessing the power of Kung Fa Kun. And in the sayings that are attributed to him, it's that whatever he prayed for would happen. Disciples come to him and request a prayer so doggone specific, anybody else would be like, wait, that's going to happen. And then the disciple goes home, and that which he prayed for is that this is already sitting there waiting on him, right? Because when we're able to raise the vibration up to get as close as we can to these figures that we follow that possess the same light that we do, but they show us how to purify it and polish it more so that more of it reflect out. It's the same light. It's just coming from this particular manifestation. So Jesus said in the Bible, the effectual and fervent prayer of a righteous and upright man availeth much. What he's pretty much saying is the exact same thing. You get to that particular station to where there's so much pure light coming from the heart. It's radiating peace and love and happiness. And where if something happens or you see a person in need of something that doesn't reflect that, and you fervently and effectually pray for that person in such a manner, Allah will bless that person with that which you just prayed for them to have, inshallah. Because I'm not even praying for me to get anything. I'm praying for Allah to send a blessing to somebody else, right? That I see does that might not have such a thing. I might have inner happiness here, but in this particular state, that person's going through something where they don't. Oh Allah, please bless this person in the accordance with the number of leaves that are going to grow on trees from the beginning of time until the end of time. That number, send blessings in accordance with that number. Send so much happiness to that person that his cup pours over. And if any does pour over, when he get finished drinking some, just pour that back in the cup. Don't give me anything. Think Allah ain't gonna send that blessing to that person that you just effectually and fervently prayed for, using some of the same bullet points that Imam Al-Ghazali has put in the book about this alchemy of happiness. And in this place where he says if we reach an angelic like state, a state close to the rank of the prophets, because every mind can do so, that if we do the same thing and pray for our brother and pray for our sister that might be going through something, Allah gonna bless that brother and that sister. Especially if that light right here is shining out so bright, ain't not man speck of dust. I'm sorry, y'all, I'm Southern. There isn't any specks of dust. There aren't. There aren't any specks of dust on the heart at all. Imam Ghazali mentions that souls like this differ from common people, common folk, regular folk in three ways. What others only see in dreams, these people like us see in waking moment. What others wills only affects their own bodies, but by willpower can move bodies extraneous to themselves, meaning by that will, that effectual and fervent prayer, I can take the same peace and love and happiness in my body and throw an alley oop to the Prophet Muhammad, send salawat on him to get that to Allah to then mirror and bounce that blessing right back to my brother or sister in need. Alhamdulillah. And the third is that the knowledge which acquires that others acquire by laborious learning or reading book and book and book and book will come by these types of people by divine intuition or that tajalli, that divine manifestation of. And at that moment, Allah just dropped something on you that you probably would have had to read 4 or 5 books to put together just by contemplating on or already having this thing polished and reflecting that light or allowing that light to come forth and manifest in action for the benefit of someone else so that that happiness is not only just shining from within, it's working from within and making something happen on the outside, that same exact source of happiness, and then freely giving it to someone who just might not have it in that particular point in time. One more page. Wow, this book is divided really well. We make good time. we'll be able to finish up chapter one. And if the brother Asar is in the building, yes, we'll get that sent over to you, inshallah. We'll get the brother Asar's bayat done right after this next page, alhamdulillah. Now, those three, he says, what other people see in dreams, people who've polished the heart and raised the vibration were able to see in their waking state. What other people think and will only happens to their own bodies, but what people who polish the heart and raise that spiritual essence to reach the highest state of perfection are able to affect others by that same light, right? Because that's a pure light. There's no ego that rose up with that. So when that light comes out in action, that's only pure intention coming forth with it. While we use the analogy of praying for someone else, because that comes from a place of purity, and the knowledge that other people get by reading 1,000 books will come to a person by a divine manifestation of intuition. Those three aren't they aren't the only marks that differentiate people on that path to people that aren't on the path, but they're the only ones that kind of come with our cognizance, like that we're able to kind of realize by seeing and studying and sometimes experiencing the fluctuations of happiness outside when it should be equal, it should be balanced across. Just as nobody knows the real nature of Allah but Allah, so no one knows the real nature of a prophet but a prophet. Nor is this to be wondered at, as in everyday matters, we see that it's impossible to explain the charm of poetry to one whose ear isn't able to understand the importance or how much math goes into cadence and rhythm, or to the glories of color to somebody who's colorblind. Essentially, what he's saying, like some of those things that are shown to us in those divine manifestations, they are so bright, they're so divine, and sometimes they come from such a far part of the cosmos that if you even try to say it to anyone else, just wouldn't be able to just wouldn't be able to understand it. So some of those divine manifestations are meant for us to keep within self, but since it's kept within self, now that light's still there, we act upon that revelation. We do something for someone that they can't do for themselves, and that they can't even repay you back for. That's why it's such important, and it's such emphasis put on feeding the hungry, cooking a meal and feeding someone, because I know somewhere in everybody's hometown there's a homeless person somewhere tonight that's still kind of trying to scrap up some money to try to go find something to eat. But somewhere today also there was someone, or Muslim, Christian, or whatever, that may have went and fed someone because they know what happens in that heart to heart connection right there. A little bit of that light from this one gets to shine on that one in word and deed and in action. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, we'll go ahead and go with that one there. To use a figure, the heart might be represented as a well, right? A well where water is, and five senses as five streams that are continually being conveyed or conveying water to it. In order for us to find out the real contents of the heart, we have to stop those streams for a while. All right. Almost same thing with the mind. And in order to come to balance, to find out what really is in the mind, all of the other streams that are bringing Lord knows what kind of topsoil and sticks and debris and those things may be akin to intrusive thoughts. Those streams have to be cut off for a while in order to find out the real contents of where those streams are pouring things into. And in some cases, at any rate, we have to refuse what some of those streams have brought with them. Right? Because if we're to arrive at a pure spiritual truth, there's some things that we have to put away for a time. One of those streams might be coming from a swamp, and the other four might be coming from areas where there's fresh water. So the stream that has water flowing in from a swamp, we might need to block that one off we cut that one off and rely on the other strings that are bringing in something clear and pure that we can drink. So anyone that'll look into the matter will see that happiness is necessarily linked with the knowledge of God. That's the gist of the chapter. Happiness is linked with the knowledge of God. And each of the faculties of our delights that can get us closer to that knowledge is for exactly that particular purpose. That's exactly why those faculties were created. Like lust delights in accomplishing a desire, that's ego. Anger and taking vengeance, that's really, really doggone amped and riled up ego. The eye, not your eyes, but the eye in seeing beautiful objects, and the ear, not the ears, but the ear in hearing harmonious sounds. So since the eye, the ear, they're both one thing, right? And Allah is the highest. We also have a state of perfection at our most high that we use as a connection, transitory point between us and Allah. The highest function of the soul of man is the perception of truth. And accordingly, in finding that and seeking that, it finds this special delight, right? The first time I wound up transliterating this Qaside and being able to recite it and with English letters right up under the Arabic words, and then get to a point where I could finally just read the Arabic words without paying a lot of attention to the English words up under it. Man, I felt happy. I started crying, really. Like I felt like I had a doggone superpower. You know, I was so doggone happy. Like it didn't make sense. Something woke up ancestrally in me. There was an ancestor somewhere in West Africa that I have a direct connection to that was writing this exact same script. And now with the teachers that we have on this path, we have the ability to read that. That made me so happy, y'all. Like, you know, hey, and that was all a part of the alchemy, a part of the process. Because granted, yes, it was taught. I had to study it and I had to practice it. I had to keep trying to read it and continue to recite day in and day out. Miss a day, recite it twice tomorrow to get to a point where it's able to be read. And every time I read it again, it's like there's an ancestor within that's just like, we used to write poetry like that when I was in the flesh. And that don't make you happy, man. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. I feel connection to the previous experiences. That was an experience. Nobody could have taught that experience in a book. But an astronomer who, by his knowledge, who can map out the stars and describe their courses, he derives more pleasure from his knowledge of the stars and how they go than the chess player does from his. But both of them get the exact same amount of pleasure equal to what their emphasis that they put on their particular craft is. Seeing that nothing is higher than God, it has to be it has to be it has to be something that is very, very delightful, that evokes a sense of happiness from the springs from forth where true knowledge of him come from, in order for that to happen and to be realized. Like Quran says, indeed, we have adorned the nearest heaven with an adornment of stars. Do they not look at the sky above them? How we built it, how we have adorned it. There are no rifts in it, nothing's tilted or slanted sideways at all. Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were at once a closed up mass, and we clove them asunder, and we made from water every living thing? Will they then not believe? Whether it's us getting that thrill from translating the Sheikh Aslu Bamaka side, or whether it's an astronomer finding a new star and throwing everything up in the air in excitement and happiness that he found something that nobody else found, that only happened because of that experience, and it only comes from one place. The soul that we have on the inside of us is a gift from God. Therefore, the human being doesn't really possess absolute ownership of the body. but the ownership of the human beings can be described as kind of a stewardship. We're here to take care of it. Right? May we all be good stewards of that which Allah has blessed us with, inshallah. So to go down towards the end here, we'll go out to the last paragraph to wrap everything up. In truth, man in this world is extremely weak and contemptible, he says. It's only in the next that he'll be of value. If by the means of this alchemy of happiness during this particular manifestation, he rises up from the rank of beasts to that of angels, or from the nafs all the way up to the nafs kamalia, then he's reached that state of perfection and happiness from the source of happiness. Only at that time will his condition be better than that of the brutes. That which was attached to that which is brute like will be have turned to dust. It's necessary for us on the path at the same time to know that we are conscious of our superiority, but don't turn it into a complex, right? We're conscious of our superiority as the climax of created things. We also have to learn to know our helplessness. This too is also one of the keys of God. We also have to know that it's on the inside of us, it dwells within the heart, is Allah. Especially if it's purified and it's cleansed of all the idols, it's polished up good, and it's reflected in out word, action, and deed. That is a key to knowing that. Partnering that key with another to make sure that lock opens up. We also have to know that even though it's impossible for me to be Allah, but it is not impossible for Allah to be me. I have to also know that at this particular vibratory rate as a human being, I am completely helpless in this manifestation. But also to remember that which is on the inside and where it comes from, and to know that there's nothing in existence that can hurt or harm it at all. With that, I'm happy. I'm happy knowing that I'm not the body. I'm happy knowing that I'm not this thing that his neck hurts sometimes. You know, I'm happy I'm not this thing whose lower back hurts sometimes, or his shoulder pops a little bit. I'm happy that I'm not the body, right? Because this thing hurts. Stuff for a lot. I'm happy that I'm the indwelling spirit that don't know what we did 70,000 years before the creation, that Allah saw fit to allow us to manifest here together on this journey together. But I'm glad that we are here doing the work for Allah, working on Muhammad's fields again together. Chat. Got it. Jeff Sheikh Mustafa for catching up on the messages. I gotta check to see his brother Asar Amun Hotep in the building, inshallah. Get the brother make it. Do not see the brother's name. Lord, bear me just one quick moment. I'd like to send the brother a quick message to see if he's still available for the Shahada and Bayat. If so, we can knock that out. If not, we shall do zikr and go forth to the astral realm and be successful there also. If you are in the in the room, you may be able to unmute your mic, send a quick message, go anyone, doing twice. Before we wrap up and close, I'll share with you guys a little insider. When going through a lot of the books that we have in the Sufi school, or a lot of the books that are shared in the WhatsApp group, if any of those ever uh, pique your interest, they're all I would say about 95% of them are all PDFs. Very few of them are Word documents. And a good study tool is, if there's anything else that have been studied or read that you remember while reading another book. It's always a good thing to highlight things because it helps us our mind to read this thing, to see us highlighting it, and then also to see us, and we're reading it again while we're highlighting it. So it's two, three times of reciting this thing in the mind and this action. But if there's a sentence in this particular first paragraph that speaks on inside and outside knowledge, I remember there's a quote from Sheikh Ahmed Bamba from Masalik al-Jinnan that has a quick hint at exoteric and esoteric knowledge. Down when he gets to start to talk about the self, what the self is composed of, where the self resides, there was a Quran verse that popped up, right? Quran verse that popped up from a previous recitation or a study. Actually, no, it's in my year one notebook. So wound up copying and pasting and putting it beside or near whatever it was that popped out in the book, or that was highlighted or sticky noted or whatnot, and saved the PDFs, because essentially by the time we're finished with this particular book, it'll be in a lot more order. Stop for a lot, but it'll be ladled with not only just teachings from Imam Ghazali, but again, other quotes from Imam Ghazali, other quotes from books from Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, uh, quotes that also line up with the exact same teaching from a Sheikh Sufi book about this this pop or this divine realization, and what happens if a person continues on the path until he eventually has that happen. The A definition of that word right beside it being explained kind of deep in that paragraph, we just put right off to the side. So if we're reading something and it's written in kind of a old style English with a lot of vines and vowel shouts and whatnot, you'll have something else to reference that may be written in a little bit more understandable English for the Western mind, and also something that's written from a completely different person, completely different master teacher, completely different Sufi order, that we're able to use to put side by side to build up on the teachings. And Lord knows, inshallah, one day you'll be talking to somebody and then it'll wind up being a deep conversation. By the time you get finished, you realize that y'all just quoted like 7 or 8 different authors in regards to just one particular topic, and have stayed right there on that topic. And it wasn't a debate at all. Nobody was back and forth trying to say this one's better than this one or that one better than that one. We're all using all of them to build up this edifice, to build up this temple. Kind of thought he kind of threw the hint out there that the body itself is a temple. Didn't even get to that one there. This particular one, This particular one is a work in progress, but once we get through with the eighth chapter, we'll have everything kind of footnoted. But if you're in any of the WhatsApp groups, Brother Nefer, if you look at the the three dots on the top right hand corner, maybe if you're in the groups, you'll look for group media, and you'll be able to see all of the files, photos, or PDFs that were shared and housed there from today back until when you entered or came into the group. But if you send me a quick message on WhatsApp after we finish up, I can chat with you and get you a couple that you'll need. But enough of my cheat codes, y'all. Let's talk for a lot. Before we wrap up, did anyone have any particular questions at all? Was there anything that stood out in the text from Sheikh Mustafa is on it? I think that the brother also wasn't able to make it, but we are still in contact, so we'll eventually have one more brother coming in, inshallah. And if our hearts and minds are clear, we'll close with mm, the four short surahs. The four short surahs, but each one 4 times for a bit of protection as we get ready to end our night and go off into the dream world, the astral world of sleep and and out of body experiences, because it said that those four are a key. That's how we get those four are a key. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله وهو العلي العظيم الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Surah Al-Ikhlas 4 times, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. سورة الفلق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. And Surah Nas to wrap up. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, min syarril waswasil khannas, alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, minal jinnati wan nas. Kul a'udhu birabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, min syarril waswasil khannas, alladhi waswisu fi sudurin nas, minal jinnati wan nas. Kul a'udhu birabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, min syarril waswasil khannas alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas minal jinnati wan nas. Kul a'udhu birabbin nas malikin nas ilahin nas min syarril waswasil khannas alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas minal jinnati wan nas. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ما ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام 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 على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Considering tuba, or 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 considering tuba, and an off-white booba. Wednesday night class again next week, 8 o'clock, inshallah. We'll dive into the second chapter of Imam Ghazali's book. PDFs shared in the WhatsApp group. So if anyone would like to, inshallah, read ahead, we'll make the next couple of classes a little bit more interactive with the book, inshallah. But if all hearts and minds are clear, May we go to sleep with the remembrance of Allah, our hearts and our minds and our tongues. And may we wake up with the remembrance of Allah, our hearts and our minds and our tongues by the secrets of La ilaha illallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Love each and every single one of you for the sake of Allah and the sake of Allah.
Walaikum salam, Sheikh. Thank you. Darrah Jeff. Salam, family.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam. Sheikh's indeed for good lecture.
Jared Jafati, Sheikh, but Darrah Jeff.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.